Good afternoon in China and good morning in Switzerland. Welcome to join our Art Science Dialogues webinar. My name is Zhijie Qiu. I'm the head of Art Science at SwissNext China. As usual, I'll give a brief introduction of our organization before we start. SwissNext China is the initiative of the Swiss State Secretariat for Education, Research and Innovation. We have a global network of 5 offices, 2 in the States, 1 in India and 1 in Brazil and us in China. For the past 11 years, we have been actively connecting the dots between China and Switzerland in science, higher education, research, and innovation. The webinar today is the final edition of our Art Science Dialogues, which we started in May. We had already covered the topics of design and material science, sonic arts, neuroscience, as well as photography and environmental ecology. And today, we're going to introduce the new interdisciplinary initiatives from the 2 top Swiss universities, ETH Zurich and EPFL. And also, we will hear about the art science practices at the Central Academy of Fine Arts in Beijing. We've invited 3 speakers today, Professor Sarah Kenderdine, Director of Laboratory for Experimental Museology and ArtLab EPFL, Ms. Maximiliane Okonnek, Managing Director of ETH Library Lab, and Professor Zhijie Qiu, Dean of the School of Experimental Arts of CAFA. So they will guide us through their professional practices and also have a collaborative discussion on the opportunities and challenges in building up such initiatives. So for our audience, you may use the Q&A tab on the bottom to type in your questions. We will answer the questions in the Q&A session. The webinar today will last about 70 minutes and the video recording will be shared afterwards. Okay, now let's welcome Professor Kenderdine from EPFL for the first presentation.
Thank you very much, Sissy. It's wonderful to be here and wonderful to have such a rich online community and great co-speakers. So I'll share my screen and this should work just nicely. And introduce to you my research practice. It really lies at the intersection of immersive visualization technologies, visual analytics, aesthetics, and cultural big data. My laboratory for experimental museology is engaged in research from scientific, artistic, and humanistic perspectives and promotes a post-cinematic, multi-sensory engagement using experimental platforms. We explore the ways in which mechanistic descriptions of database logic can be replaced by the ways in which computation can become experiential, spatial, and materialized, embedded, and embodied through various participatory and immersive regimes. For 20 years, I've been designing and building large-scale immersive platforms for mass public engagement with cultural heritage and art originally at Museum Victoria in Melbourne, Australia. I then started to work with universities to try and sustain this architecture and infrastructure across a kind of hybrid GLAM sector, university sector framework with iCinema Research Centre in Sydney. I then co-established with Professor Geoffrey Shaw in Hong Kong the Applied Laboratory for Interactive Visualization and Embodiment as part of CityU and located at the Hong Kong Science Park. I then returned to Australia to build the Expanded Perception and Interaction Centre at the University of New South Wales, where if you look on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see a small 7-meter diameter panorama, but this is in fact comprised of 56 projectors and a 29 computer cluster. It's 3 times higher resolution than anything else in the world at the moment. And it was really at the edge of human visual acuity and designed to solve visualization challenges for complexity in the arts and sciences. And now at EPFL in Switzerland, the Lab for Experimental Museology, which includes 8 large-scale systems offering us strategies for multisensory engagement, emphasizing human-to-human as well as human-to-machine interaction, giving us powerful ways to reformulate narrative in a digital context. I also direct and curate ArtLab, which is a new art science initiative by EPFL. It's an amplifier for science in society and a meeting place for all disciplines where exhibitions and programs evolve in dialogue with scientific innovation and societal challenges, engaging visionary perspectives on our contemporaneity. In participation with the diverse communities of EPFL and society, ArtLab blends experimental curatorship and contemporary aesthetics with open science, digital humanism, and emerging technologies. In this repertoire of work, I've just chosen 3 themes as illustrative examples of the type of work that I'm creating, spanning from archival reuse, if you like, through to new forms of theatre. So I'll just illustrate these. The first is cultural data sculpting, and it's really about collaborative co-creation, Archive 3.0, a dynamic archive which charts the shift from the classification of objects to their remix in a paradigmatic move from orthodox models of stewardship via curation and managed access to one of co-production. And the numerous ways that we can deal with archives, reassemble them, mine them, experience them, proliferates all their meanings. And these archives demand us to create new novel forms of human-computer interaction, if you like, new prosthetic architectures for the sharing of archival resources. So this first work, Jazz Luminaries for Infinity Room 2, is based on the constellation of the jazz greats from the Montreux Jazz Archive. And this installation cuts, remixes, and replays 5,400 artists and 13,000 videos from a total archive of 11,000 hours of video. This archive was created by EPFL over the last 15 years and is registered as a UNESCO Memory of the World. So you're looking at a kind of neural net image here, and it's based on the social network of these artists, these 5,400 artists, and the clustering is based on the number of times that these artists played with each other. So B.B. King is at the center of this very dense network. It was staged in a full dome, and this is the real-time work. To each of the songs played by a particular musician. And then you go into the entire song for that particular sequence of video. And the interface is a spherical ball which emulates the hemisphere of the actual of the dome itself, and it plays with these ideas of how you search. So it's not text-based searching, but it's like surfing radio channels, and when you hear what you like, you go into the sequence of songs and so on. And it also uses this single-user multi-spectator paradigm where the social is harnessed and authority is shared amongst strangers. The second topic that we work a lot on is the archaeology of the body, and it deals with intangible cultural heritage and its processes of digital documentation, reproduction, and transmission. And this is based in Hong Kong. It's an ongoing project, and Hong Kong is an extraordinary reservoir of South Chinese Kung Fu, Jackie Chan, Gordon Liu, Hong Kong cinema. These are all under extreme pressure and in danger of being lost. And together with the International Gaochu Association, City University, and the masters themselves, we've been creating this 4D typology with 33 elite masters and a whole series of Taolu across 19 styles. So motion capture, extensive motion capture, capture of all the rituals that sit around these types of Kung Fu. And here you see, this is Oscar. It's very, very fast, very precise. And from the motion capture data, we're able to create 3D digital models, then able to annotate in real time the motion over time analysis that you see on the bottom of the screen. So we've had about 9 exhibitions worldwide to date, also one in Switzerland and at the ArtLab, and also in the Gestaltung Museum in Zurich. One of the central features of this is a rear-projected hemispheric system where you can walk around and look at the Kung Fu master from various perspectives. Here, different forms of annotation. It's all in 3D with this interactive interface. This is speed on the body at any particular point. This is a typical particle simulation of these motions. And here, a sort of procedural motion graphics example of analyzing human movement, which has application in everything from serious games through to robotics. This is Lam Sai Wing, first choreographer and Kung Fu master to use photography in studio practice. And we have hand drawings of him in photographs, and we created a 3D model by applying the motion capture data of his great-great-grandnephew to the 3D model based on the photographs. Pose matching for visitors, where you reenact the gesture on display as new modes of transmission. And a whole range of different forms of documentation, 500 to 1,000 frame a second video. And as I mentioned, the ritual culture that sits around this, these practices. The third theme is orientated around new forms of narrative and the way in which algorithmic digital systems permit a kind of narrative polyphony to be emergent properties generated by user interaction. And this work, Unmakeable Love, investigates the histories of liveness, performance, and the life of machines by articulating Samuel Beckett's prose work, The Lost Ones. And this artwork is a revisioning of Beckett's initial investigation that focuses and makes interactively tangible a state of confrontation between ourselves and another society that is operating in a severe state of physical and psychological entropy. The Lost Ones is this small text, and it describes 200 people incarcerated in a confined space and the resulting existential tension. It uses mixed reality strategies with these interactive torches to intricately engage the presence and agency of the viewers and impel them to experience the anomalies of perceptual disequilibrium. Many theorists have talked about this text, and Lyotard talks about Beckett's systematic madness, Porish talks about the cybernetic machine, and Schwab also talks about a soul making and a disembodied artificial intelligence. It uses a gain reactor with interactive torches. It was a very precise text, so we're able to use a games engine to encode all of the movements. 350 motion capture sequences are strung together on the fly to create this, this work. And the obsessive lifelike behaviors of the inhabitants are derived from these motion capture sequences. And it's got one other feature, which is a mixed reality feature, which means there is a video camera in front of each screen, and it's capturing the torch user and displays their video in real time in the virtual world. So here you see me peering across the reactor system, and we can see Jeffrey Shaw, the co-developer of the work, on the other side. So a mixed reality. The characters themselves are completely oblivious to our interaction. So Unmakeable Love locates Beckett's society of lost ones in a virtual space that represents many of the severe states of physical confinement, evoking a prison, an asylum, a detention center, or even a dystopian TV show. And as Beckett describes, the effect of this climate on the soul is not to be underestimated. And this is really was the inspiration for this work in late 2009. So that's what I thought I would share today. And I will just stop sharing my screen, and that's it from me.
Thank you, Professor Kenderdine, for the very interesting presentation. So now let's welcome our second speaker, Maximiliane from ETH Zurich. So she will share with us the projects and experiences at ETH Library Lab.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me today to speak amongst this incredible lineup of speakers in the former webinars, but also today. Please let me share my screen. 1 second. So. Wait a second. Some problems here. So let's try this again. So here we go. So okay. Thank you very much for your patience, and apologies for the little bit of the delay. Thank you, SwissNext China, for inviting me to take part in this webinar series around art and science dialogues. Also, thanks to Zhijie for the kind introduction at the beginning. I'm also honored to be amongst this lineup of speakers. I have been also listening to the talks before with much interest. Let me start with our location, where we are currently sitting with our ETH Library Lab, also to put things a little bit in perspective regarding size. I had the chance to travel to Shanghai last year to attend a conference and hold a talk. And I was really impressed by the size of the city with its 25 million inhabitants. Here you see also Zurich and the only high-rise building in Zurich in the background. We are located in the building in front. It's the Technopark, a space where startups from the economic sphere, but also scientific initiatives are coming together, exchanging and also closely collaborating. ETH Library Lab itself started or was founded in 2018. It is a joint initiative of ETH Library at ETH Zurich and the Karlsruhe Institute, or the Library of the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology in Germany. As I already said, the officially founding date was beginning of April 2018, but we resumed our official operations in March 2019, which also meant that we were able to welcome our first Innovator Fellows at ETH Library Lab. This is something I'm going to talk about later. The main idea behind this lab was to establish an innovation lab that functions as a think and do tech to identify and proactively work towards specified and desired future scenarios for scientific libraries. So we are in a little bit of a different space than other initiatives surrounding us. What is ETH Library Lab? From the beginning on, our space was thought to be an interdisciplinary space where different perspectives are coming together. Perspectives, for instance, like the open science perspective or the human-centered product development perspective, also influences from the end-to-end entrepreneurship world and the ideas around social innovation. In a sense, we seem to have quite similar goals expressed in former talks already during this webinar series, like Mrs. Piri-Ebi put it in her talk. She said at Compass Studio, they are working towards a better world. And also the talk of Laila Wu resonates with myself, who has presented on Uni Group, who said that their group is working to make life better and therefore the world better. We are following the same motivation, but on a different trajectory, maybe with a focus on infrastructure for science and research that is open, inclusive, and sustainable. What is our mission at ETH Library Lab? Our mission is to help students, researchers, and educators to become more efficient and effective in their use of scientific information and knowledge. We would like to enable them to put to use the human body of knowledge for their own innovative ideas and projects, and therefore be also creating benefit for our society. Our main goal is innovating and advancing scientific information infrastructures and services for science, research, and education, or to put it in other more simpler words, we at our lab, we love the free flow of scientific data, information, and knowledge. To visualize it a little bit in a different way, we see ourselves as acting at the intersection of science and research, the public sphere, and information and knowledge society. In a sense, we also believe that this is a valuable contribution towards striking a balance between the economic sector, the public sector, and civil society. How does this all relate to art and science dialogues? I will give you a short overview of activities in our library at ETH Zurich, which spans a lot of collections, archives, library activities, but also museums. And this video you see here is an example of a project that has been initiated by the graphic collection at ETH Zurich, who has facilitated a dialogue between the Swiss artist Yves Netzhammer and one group of digital fabrication here at ETH Zurich of the architecture department. You see here an installation that is executed by a robotic setup that has been exhibited at the main building of ETH Zurich in the beginning of this year for a couple of weeks. But also in another sense, the various holdings of ETH Library witness the repeating intersections of art and science over history, and are shown by the various objects that are able to be accessed at the archives, collections, and museums at our institution. We are, for instance, having 2 literature archives who are taking care of the cultural heritage around the belongings of the Max Frisch archive and Thomas Mann archives, and 2 renowned writers here in Europe. We are also having biodiversity collections and data collections. We are owning the graphical collection and the recording exhibition space. We are also having a natural historic museum at ETH Library, and a huge image archive spanning the fields of photography, of documentation, reportage, art, history, and architecture documentation. You can also see a lot of rare books that have been digitized in a huge effort over the last decade or even more, which show the richness of scientific illustration, for instance. And we have also historical maps that allow us also to show the distribution of certain contents over time and regarding specific places. So in a sense, we are deeply rooted in this awareness of path dependencies for developments in any field, such as science, technology, education, and society. The library itself today, and apart from lending books, which most people, I guess, think of when talking about libraries nowadays, today the library also functions as a partner for scientists and researchers along their research life cycle, which is mainly digital and is also a facilitator of dialogue between science and society. And as we have been talking about the history and the present and the developments of technology, or the accelerating technology developments in the present, it's also inevitable to think about how the library or the scientific library of the future should be to really be able to provide value for its users. On this angle, ETH Library Lab is working on we are trying to anticipate and understand upcoming needs in the higher education environment. Not different from other aspects in our life, science and research are confronted with a strong pace of technology development. And as a result, we also see something that is sometimes called the Cambrian explosion of innovation. And so it's really hard to deal with this mass of information, data, and knowledge surrounding us. And related to that, we are welcoming at ETH Library Lab thinkers and doers who have ideas that have the potential to reshape workflows for the future of science. Usually innovator fellows accepted at our lab are bringing their own idea to prototype level. They are applying with their own idea, and we are accompanying them on their project and also learning journey by providing them contacts and collaboration with inspiring mentors, long-standing experts, and recognized scientists. In a sense, this works a little bit similar to initiatives that you can see in the economic sphere, such as incubators or accelerators. To give you a little bit of an idea of who has been joining us since last year, it's a diverse group of young and bold talents from a lot of different fields. We have had 12 fellows at our lab who have been working on 9 projects so far. They're coming from 9 different disciplines and are having 7 nationalities. And to give you a little bit more of a better impression of what kind of projects we are talking about, here are some examples of the overall group of 9 projects. One of the projects has been prototyping a process for something we call future dialogues, which is a moderated session where we invite experts from different fields in order to learn more about future developments in science and research and how they might affect and impact scientific libraries and how we would need to act in order to adapt to that. Another project that has started out as a research project where we wanted to learn more about applying machine learning techniques on our contents and the collections. We have been developing an application that helps taxonomists and natural historic collections at ETH Zurich to be faster in classifying insect specimen. So with this support of new technologies, we are able to improve collections workflows, which also results in the accelerated release of research data. And we are also trying to develop processes for deploying new applications. And alongside that, we also want to learn more about, like, when we are talking about AI and using AI for libraries, what are we actually talking about, because this is a vast field. And it's also very necessary for us to define what would be useful and meaningful for our environments in ETH Library Lab, and also at the end, and most importantly, for our end users. Another project that has been run by a student from Technical University of Munich and one ETH student here in Zurich. They have been jointly working on a project that at the end resulted in an API for GitHub that worked sort of a facilitator and combined the learning of code with the documentation of code. This is a topic that is somewhat close to our heart at libraries, because we are very aware of the fact that proper documentation of research output leads to better findability and accessibility in the later run, and code is one of the current most important outputs of research processes. And this, and now we are coming closer to projects that are related to art and science dialogues in our library lab. This has been a project run by Marie Griesmer. It was called Beneath the Sea. And her main goal working in the last year was to create artistic sculptures made of clay that can be put underwater in order for corals to settle on and grow. Because she was witnessing, as a scuba diver herself, the coral reef bleaching events, and she wanted to do something as an artist about it. What we did at ETH Library Lab, we helped her actually on the process from moving to produce her clay sculptures by hand towards digital fabrication. That is why we connected her with scientists from different fields here at ETH Zurich that supported her along her learning journey on how to apply new technology supported methods in order to manufacture their sculptures. And why is this a project actually libraries would be interested in? Of course, we were interested in this project because of the data side of 3D printing. What kind of data is resulting from planning and executing this 3D printing projects? What kind of software infrastructures are used in hardware environments? But most importantly, we wanted to know what kind of infrastructures are in place to allow for later collaboration and sharing of the outputs. So as you see, fellows are coming to our lab with their own project, and they are working self-organized, and we are supporting them along the line with the right people to work together with, and also with a toolkit of methods and tools that help them to solve their specific problem. At the end, we are sort of supporting young talents in becoming influencers who are fluent in transdisciplinary collaboration, able to drive innovation and digital transformation in their respective field, and who are benefiting society as a whole. And this is already the end of my talk. If you are interested in what we are doing or having questions, you can always contact me if you like to. And we would be happy if you could spread the word. Our Innovator Fellowship Program is open to international applicants from across disciplines. And we are running our next open call in January 2021. Thank you all very much for your attention.
Thank you, Maximiliane, for the very insightful presentation. So after hearing about the Swiss models, let's welcome Professor Qiu from Central Academy of Fine Arts in Beijing to share with us the art science practices in China.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Thank you, Zhijie, and really happy to be here. I will start from what I'm doing yesterday and what we are doing recently. Yesterday, I was in Tsinghua University in this so-called happiness technology lab, which is actually a brand sciences lab. I was at as a how can I say, experimental animals to text, to pick up my brand data for writing calligraphy. That's how they installed the brand computer interface on my head. And then after it's been installed, I start to, I start from a meditation, which can prove that it's really work. Then I start to writing calligraphy, and they record all the brand information, and then start their analysis. Okay, that is what it was like yesterday. And that project is based on, is because we try to train AI calligraphy programs, which we start from the emotional mode of calligraphy. Here I put like 8 modes of different style of calligraphy. Each style linked to a special emotions or emotions status. And then this project is try to have a program which can replace the font production. We know to create the Chinese font is very difficult because in China, normally we use more than 3,000 characters in the everyday life, which is very different with the Western language. With like 30 or 26 characters, and then it became very expensive to create a new types of fonts. That's why we need to train the AI to have a cheap and quickly process to create the font, the computer fonts. And then we start we developed all the style into 8 different type, and each one linked to a special mode. Then we work with the Jingdong Artificial Intelligence Institute. We tried all the different way to create the images. And that's why we need a brand with brand data to prove the style is actually linked to the human emotions, and that's the output. Now it is a app which we can input the different texts. Then it can render the calligraphy, and you can type and render again. So now we can see all the characters here is totally different. The same characters in different time. It's created a different style. Then we try to change the mode to understand the emotion of the text. Here we can also see the same characters is different style in different rendering. And then we try to make the model to understand the meaning of the text. For example, here we can see the same characters in one text. Depends on the meaning in the article. The AI got to understand the different meaning in different contexts, and then try to give the very different style for the same characters. And now the next process is we try to put the motion process to the calligraphy programs. Then go to
Chinese researchers have developed a robot that can write Chinese calligraphy in different styles. The robot can be seen here writing the words science and arts in complex Chinese.
Now, this mechanical arm was made by
the robot was developed by a team led by Xu Yangcheng, a professor at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Xu displayed the robot at an artificial intelligence conference being held in Beijing.
Okay, the arm is just to like copy the calligrapher's motion. But now the purpose of our AI programs is actually to result like what it wants to write. That's the project. That's the first project. And this project is actually start from the earlier project we worked together with this scientist, Professor He Xiaodong, which is the AI scientist in Jingdong.com. And we try to train the AI mod to make the band map automatically, and that is the results. Now I start to speak, and AI programs, they gonna to capture my sound and understand the meaning. And depends on the meaning, it's create the band map for the keyword. And actually it can make the band map for each word, but it's gonna be too narrow on the screen if we pick every word. So we decided to just give like 4 or 5 like expansion for every keyword. And then we try a lot to train the AI to be humor, to take a joke. And we also have a different mod to use this program. In this mod, we can clap it. Then every keyword will open to like a, it can become a bigger and bigger band map. And we use the surface, use the elements from my painting, all the elements, so to make sure the style seems like my map, my band map. And the purpose of this program actually starts from like we try to make something which possible can replace PPT, because we for half year we take a lot of like internet classes, internet course, and I make more than 3,000 pages of PPT for the past 6 months. So we are dreaming of a possibility like we just start to speak something, then the AI can pick the keyword and to render the band map automatically. And then each word can capture the images and video from the internet itself. So we can just stand there and start to talk. And then we have the presentation on the screen, on the background. And that's the dream. Now, because we need to use all this like a sound recognize technology and automatic translation, and automatic band map expansion all together. So we had to use the clouds, and so the speed is not that real time. Sometimes it's like a 5 or 6 seconds delayed. But I think we're gonna show this program. And the essays about this project already published in this address in IE and IJCAI last year. And because the new essays about the calligraphy projects just been accepted by another science conference, but the judge in the review, 2 of them really excited for that. But one of the judge, he cannot understand what is the relationship between the calligraphy style and the human emotion. That's why I go to the blind lab to make the experiment yesterday. And also in the field of AI, I have the Microsoft Asian institute to train AI painter, which is called Xiaobin. We give her, we just say her, we give her a name called Xia Yubin. I actually put the painting of the AI in the graduate exhibition in CAFA, and in the MA student graduate exhibition. And then no one actually realized that it's a paint by an AI. But after 1 week, the Microsoft announced that this is their AI being graduated from CAFA. So everyone come to the exhibition to see the young painters painting, and then people start to realize that okay, there is still some difference with the human being, the human painter. So in this words, we can say this Microsoft painters already passed this Turing testing. And that is her painting. We actually used like 234 painters during the past 400 years. More than 40,000 paintings to change the AI. And now it became also a APP, which we can give a text. We can give her a text. Then in 3 minutes, it can render a new painting. But actually, we can have thousands of people do that at the same time, and so she can make the painting like a day and night. And last year in CAFA Museum, I curated the solo exhibition for this young painter, this AI painter, Xiaobin. We can have some detail about that. Okay, that is almost like a job because you know, this AI students being graduated from CAFA, and we know I need to introduce CAFA, which I'm teaching here now. And I'm teaching here as the dean of the School of Experimental Art. And CAFA was the oldest art university in China, which is like you know, the Chinese RMB currency was designed by CAFA, and all these important monuments in China. So it's been like widely regarded as one of the most important art school in China. But the education system in art education system in CAFA is like really beyond people's imagination. That is the sense of how the young students try to take part in the examination to apply the CAFA. And that is the way when you know, when we give the how can I say, after the examination, when we try to pick up the good students. So the education system is really old, and in the traditional departments like oil painting, ink painting department, sculpture department, we have a lot of students who can paint really like the Renaissance master, but try to introduce science and technology became a new taste for me. So in the School of Experimental Art, I have studio art, which is more like we said the traditional contemporary art. Then we have art and society, and I'm building up this new department of science and technological art. And so after 2016, when I moved to CAFA, I start to set up a series of new course and to introduce all the international teachers come to CAFA and to set up the relationship between the Chinese Science Institute and CAFA. When we have some special class, we don't have enough depth. We bring the students to the Science Institute. And also from 2017, I found this East seasons. It's the East means education, art and science and technologies, which it is an international conference. We have all these like famous artists, art university, the art and tech departments, and art festival, and like V2 and art electronic in Linz, and like the Bio Art Award in Netherlands. And we also have this like all the independent research curator and artists visiting CAFA every year in November. And it's already been like 3 editions after it started from 2017. For this year, we don't know how to deal with that. Maybe it's gonna be a internet conference for this upcoming new edition. And every year during the meeting, we have quite a lot of like workshop to bring to start the teaching like beyond the everyday course. Here's just one example for yeah, here I saw one example of one of the students. She actually used the mechanic to bring the magnet to control the liquid metal, which the liquid metal was being controlled to try to climb the mountain. And then when the magnet disappears, it's been fall down all the time. So it got a very traditional title called Sisyphus. That is because changing the magnet, so made the liquid metal appear different situation. And then we also set up a series of like curating quite a series of exhibitions, include the Asian Digital Exhibition. That is not last year in Beijing, and we are actually preparing the next edition, which will open in this upcoming September. But it's a pity because of the war situation today. Most of the international artists can just send their piece and cannot actually visit Beijing. And also we curate the biggest artificial intelligence exhibition. It's called the Bandedict in Shanghai. And we have the Future Humanity in 798 factory in Beijing. We also had the first bio-art exhibition in China last year in Beijing. And in Shenzhen, we actually curate the 40 years of art electronics. It's called 40 years of human technology. It's actually the respected exhibition of 40 years of art electronics of Linz. And because the city of Shenzhen, it's also had 40 years history. And that's why last year we had the 40 years of Linz in Shenzhen. It's a big exhibition. And during the exhibition, we also like bring the research of the technological history. And now we found we found a magazine. It's called Innovation. Together with a group of young scientists in the Chinese Science Institute. It's called Chinese Young Scientists Association. Now we are working for another new project. We try to bring all the demonstration from different sciences conference, because I realized during all these sciences and technological conference, it's not the art exhibition, but when people publish in their conference, they always have sometimes they have a demonstration exhibition at the same time, and some of the demonstrations is actually quite like visualized, quite visual, and they are hardcore, and they also have the social consciousness. And why don't we regard them as some art piece and organize an exhibition for them? And that's what we are doing together with the young scientists in China today. And in China, the relationship between art and sciences is still quite hot, a new wave. And people really believed in to introduce artists to work together with the scientists and technological people, gonna be important for the creativity. But actually, for me, people all believe in that's gonna be helpful if some scientists understand art and the artists to get some technological skill, and gonna be really helpful. So I will end in this paper, which is written by I think it's University Michigan in 2008 and published on the Technological Philosophy magazine, which they get the data from all these scientists who used to win the Nobel Prize and the scientists without Nobel Prize, and to get the data like a better scientists. They understand art much more better than the normal scientists. But it's interesting, during the different types of art, it seems like still some difference. If you understand music, they're gonna be much more help, and art is okay, but for performance, it seems like not that helpful. I would like to end in this images and try to bring people really think about what is the relationship of art and science and technology, and what's gonna be the future like. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Qiu. Since we are a bit behind our schedule, so we'll go directly into the Q&A session. So actually, one observation from my side is that in Europe, there are many art science labs, residency programs, and that are initiated from the science field. For example, CERN in Geneva and the 2 labs we are talking about today. So however, in China, such initiatives or projects are mostly coming from the art field, like CAFA we are introducing today. So I'm quite curious to know why it is like that, and I'm not sure if Professor Qiu has the same feeling about this. And for Professor Kenderdine and Maximiliane, how do you feel about the impact or benefit of your labs to the host universities, and what are the challenges in building up such initiatives and operating the projects?
Okay, I got the question from Peter Johnson, which is old friends. Hi Peter, and she's asking is it possible to access the blind math on the web? Now I don't think it's good enough to actually put it on the web as a public link because of the speed of the internet. But I think I can put the link on. I can share the link here later.
Sissy, just to go back to your question about the differences between China and let's say America and Europe, and also the impact that our types of initiatives are having in the scientific community. And I would say that there is a long tradition, of course, of innovation in the sciences, which is driven by the arts. So the recognition at MIT, at Xerox PARC in the 60s and 70s, that if you have artists leading a vision together with scientists, you have potential innovations that would not otherwise be possible. And I think that thinking is very prevalent at EPFL, for instance, where 1/3 of the university is tech startup. It's a big innovation park. It's a very, very strong technology focus, but the recognition that creativity is fundamental to make it work is part of the thinking there. And the ArtLab project really was to make this visible, to make this relationship visible, and to tangibly connect artists who we might bring in, artists in residence, or some of the humanities people that are at the university, in conjunction so far with over 50 laboratories in just a few years. So it's had quite a profound impact. And also the spontaneity and the interest of the scientists in these new modes of thinking is also very rewarding. They're very, very open, yeah, to this. And so I'm working right across different scientific bodies to bring new ways of seeing into being with them. And I think this is very powerful.
Yeah, maybe I would like to add something to what Professor Kenderdine said and put in a very good way before. I think this is also something that is very important to ETH Zurich as university, is to facilitate this dialogue between different disciplines and maybe open up the perspective for students, that they're not only sticking to the ways of seeing of their own disciplines, but also opening up and seeing the worlds from different angles, since we are all subjective human beings and there are so many different realities out there. I think this is very crucial for leading a happy life, being successful in a later career, and also building something that is of impact and meaningful for our society. So in this sense, with our initiative, we are also in line with the critical thinking initiative of ETH Zurich itself, that wants to spur discussion and want to support people in taking different perspectives. And then, as you also ask for the challenges that are, of course, sometimes there if you bring different disciplines and people from different areas together. Something we have observed alongside our projects, especially alongside the art and science project, is that at the beginning there's also a phase where you need to find common ground in terms of how you communicate with each other, which kind of vocabulary are you using, and also which kind of currencies you are looking at. Because we had, for instance, once this very insightful a moment in a group discussion where the researchers asked for the publications of the artists because this is the main currency that is paid in science. And the artist that was approached said, well, I'm exhibiting, I'm not publicating. So this is sometimes like little obstacles, which are of course easy to handle, but you need to be aware of these kind of obstacles in order to be successful in facilitating these kind of dialogues, I think.
Thank you. And for Professor Qiu, do you have any challenges when you are pulling up all these initiatives at CAFA?
Yes,
I see
of course.
you're leading a lot of new projects.
Yes, every time when I visit MIT, visit Hong Kong City U, visit Jeffrey Shaw, and actually hearing like Professor Salah, Katrina, introducing what happens in Europe. And I'm really like admire and admire, like, you know, in CAFA in China, we have in 1996, I curated the first video art exhibition in China. And then people start to talking about media art for more than 20 years. And then, but when I come to CAFA, when I come to CAFA, I start to introduce this idea of science and technological art to replace the concept of media art or maybe new media art, because if it only focus on media, so the students, they only like a concept about, they only take care about like internet, computer, maybe VR, AR, maybe some AI, but no, the artists, they won't like regard the biotechnology, the climate, the earth sciences. They not want to regard that as something called high tech. So their view became very narrow. So we can't imagine like so all the students that are really interested in the live streaming to become famous. I think that they're gonna be terrible. So for me, I'm still here in CAFA. I'm still in the process of building this like ecological system for this art and science of art and text. And not that much people understand that, and students not really prepare well, because now in the examination of CAFA, I start to give them the mathematical question, which like really like different with the traditional exam, and the students being crazy. But I think it's necessary, because we need the students to work with the sciences and technological people. But the good news is, so I think the school, we even don't have enough physical space to actually set up a lab. If I got the physical space, I have enough of company want to donate their machine. But I really don't have space to put all the machine they want to give me. And so quite a lot of difficulties. The whole system is not prepared well. And I already, you know, for me to organize the ETH conference is actually because I don't have enough time to visit each school to learn from them. So I had to invite everyone to come to Beijing to teach me how to set up this system. And after 3 years now, I got the map about what happened in the world, but to realize something, to set up something in CAFA, still on the way. But the good news is, in China, we can see now the whole social consciousness is like people really believed in creativity. All the company people, all the sciences, when I come to the Chinese Science Institute to visit all the like professional sciences, when I just come there and introduce, okay, who am I? I'm an artist. I try to develop some project about art and society. And they already so open and so like excited, because they really believe, they don't really trust like art will bring something to even the sciences innovation and technological innovation. And even all these companies, we work very closely. And that I realized when I visited Europe and United States, I realized, okay, we actually have quite like a deep relationship with all the companies. We actually create the production together and writing the essays together. So that's something good, but still too much like things empty for me.
Thank you, Professor Qiu. I think we really appreciate your work. We have quite many questions coming from the audience, so I'll just pick from the Q&A box. The first one came from Huizhu Chen. So this is a question for Professor Kenderdine. How long did it take Professor Kenderdine to compose the project of Kung Fu in Hong Kong before the exhibitions, and who funded the project?
Right, the project is still ongoing. So I think we've done about 60% of the overall repertoire, and it began in 2012. At that time, I had a research center and I had research money. So initially, I was able to fund it internally, together with the Masters and the International Gaoqiu Association. Our first exhibition was about 3 years after the process began, so huge amount of documentation. Each exhibition has its own funding attached to it, coming from different venues and different museums. And at one point we even did a Kickstarter campaign, and then we also write research grants specifically for certain aspects. I'm just about to hire a Chinese PhD who will also work on this Kung Fu project from a data science ontology perspective. So it's a very rich and ongoing project. And most recently, the Hong Kong government have found a building where the archive and a museum can be built more permanently. So it's a great endorsement of all the research that's happened to date.
Thank you. Another question I think is for all the speakers is from Luca Falcucci. He was one of our previous speakers as well. The question is, the outcomes are fascinating in each presentation, inspiring and highly innovative. Thanks for sharing. What are your views on the processes to reach such results?
Well, maybe I can start at this point. I can only talk for our initiative, but I perceive this process as an ongoing and constant learning journey still. Since you start with a certain view of what the things will be like in the future, but you always will experience that that was only a view and the reality is a little bit different. So I think by building up these kind of processes, you need to be able to adapt to unexpected circumstances. That also means that you need to strike a balance between openness and flexibility, but also defining a process in a way that it works for yourself and your organization, but also for people who would like to participate in your initiative.
Thank you. So maybe Professor Kenderdine could.
I would definitely agree with you there. It's the ability to both to create the context in which these works can be born, and that is kind of bureaucratic, and it has certain bureaucratic parameters to it, but also to not predefine the goal to the degree that it impinges on what is possible. And certainly a lot of the work that is going on in AI is partly about releasing some of those constraints and being more emergent. Any interactive work that you create has unpredictable results. The way in which audiences respond to these works is always unfolding as they get exhibited. So there's a constant learning and building that goes on there. And over many, many years, you also have a certain, you can predict sometimes more what is going to happen. And also where the limits are of one's capacity. Yeah.
Thank you. Professor Qiu, would you like to add?
I'm not quite certain about what Lucas means the process, but for me, the process, of course, always much more interesting than the end and then the goal. Actually, only all these endless projects can be an interesting project. Like so, any good project always bring much more projects, more than it can output. So for example, we actually start from the mind map project, then it's bring me to this like calligraphy project. And from the calligraphy projects, we don't know where we go. We go to the mechanical arm and to try to realize a physical AI actually writing in the exhibition hall. So actually the goal been moving all the time. And so I think when we talk about the future, we cannot have this goal management. We can only got the start point and guess that we're gonna have a good luck. Good luck.
Thank you. I think I'll just take one last question. So this is from Alexander, and he actually will be our next speaker for our Café des Sciences lecture. So the question is, with hybridization of virtual analog space being forced into everyone's lives during the past year, what are your thoughts about the potential for such hyper-realities in more everyday contexts? For example, home, work, commerce, and so forth.
I can briefly talk about some of the things that it's unleashed for us. So we've always been interested in what I call the Internet of Big Machines, where you have big systems connected together over ultra high-speed networking. But one of the other ideas that came up in this is, so what is the future of a remote exhibition? Because it's certainly not virtual models online. They're really boring. So we are exploring ideas around the use of drones and the creation of exhibitions that are remotely viewed through a live drone experience where you control your own drone through the exhibition space. And that in itself could give rise to a whole new aesthetic criteria of work which is viewed from above, potentially, or in real time, from any perspective. But so these kind of hybrid models of what we knew before and what's possible now are things that interest us. And of course, the social aspects, if you talk to people wanting to do the future of conferencing, giving PowerPoint presentations is fine, but what about the cocktail party? That's the question I always get. What's going to happen with the cocktail party? Experiments in the future cocktail party is really on everybody's mind.
Thank you. I'm not sure about the other two speakers, if you'd like to add something on this.
I think I would like to make a comment, because I was also very impressed on this archival idea that Sarah Kenderdine expressed before on this different modes of assessing cultural heritage. I think the developments in the last year are definitely a trigger for libraries itself to think about more about these kind of spaces and how scientific information and knowledge can be accessed in these kind of spaces. We would also like to think about including the materials that are held in libraries and archives in educational approaches that are using different tools to make learning experiences more immersive.
Thank you. Professor Qiu.
Okay, too complicated. In the past few years, I'm like working day and night as an artist to create the art piece myself, as a curator to organize the exhibition, as a professor for teaching, and more like a mapper. Actually, my art piece is making map, but here, like in the new field of the science and technological art education in China, I'm working like a mapper and try to link all the different people like together. My most challenge is we don't have enough people, and also actually the political situation in the world now is very big influence to all what happened. Not only about the can the exhibition open on time or not? Of the conference became an internet conference. Not only about that, but also about like all these like sciences, all these like technological companies being very influenced by the like recently situation. So like more and more we even cannot have a long like a proposal more than half year, like you know, the future become more and more uncertain, and so we are like all the students, all the colleagues around me, we are actually working for the project for next month. That's the everyday life.
Thank you. So I guess we are running out of time and we have to close our discussion today. For our audience, if you still have questions, you may write to us at artscience@swissnextchina.org. And I'd like to thank our speakers for the brilliant talks and discussions, and also thank our audience to stay with us for this session. And we hope could see you again in our future events, and please follow us at our social media channels for further updates. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.